Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
All right, welcome back to Big Country Politics. Once again, we have Dr. Paul Fabrizio of McMurray University, political science professor over there. Thank you very much for being here.
It's good to be here.
Well, we know we didn't get to talk to you last week or the week before that, and we had so much to talk about because, you know, everything was going. Now we have a new set of things to talk about. We can't even revisit all those things. But, so let's talk about Super Tuesday. Let's explain to everybody what Super Tuesday is.
Okay. What happens is there's contests in each of the 50 states for the Democratic nomination and the Republican nomination. And a bunch of states, 14 states, all have elections on Tuesday.
Which is
March
why it's
3rd.
called Super Tuesday.
Exactly. And it used to be that it was just southern states, but it's expanded beyond that now. So now the two biggest states, California and Texas, are there holding elections on March 3rd. And so therefore, a ton of attention is focused on it. And you think about Mike Bloomberg, one of the candidates for the Democratic nomination, he didn't compete in the first four campaigns. He is only focusing on Super Tuesday. And he has spent $500 million just trying to get votes on Tuesday.
He wasn't involved in the caucuses.
He wasn't involved in the caucus. Yeah, his name was out there, but you couldn't vote for him unless you wrote it in. And the same thing with Nevada, New Hampshire, Iowa, and South Carolina. His attention is on Super Tuesday.
Let's talk about Bernie Sanders. He's coming out of the caucuses looking pretty good, right?
Yes.
I mean, he's leading the pack.
Yes, he's a front runner.
He's a front runner. How important is Super Tuesday to Bernie Sanders?
It is incredibly important for him. What he has to demonstrate is that his appeal is beyond these focused things that took place in Nevada and New Hampshire and Iowa, where he spent weeks and weeks there. Now it's 14 different states. He's barely visited them except for Texas and California. And so he has to demonstrate that he has nationwide appeal. And based on the polls right now, it looks like he might have that. Now, he doesn't have to win. He just has to do better than the other candidates. And so if he can get a plurality of the delegates at the end of Super Tuesday, he is in the driver's seat going to the convention.
There was a debate recently last week. I got to confess, I don't watch the debates because they're
missing such good television.
Well, yeah, I know it, and I'm watching.
Well, sometimes childish.
Well, and that's the thing. Are people turned off by what we saw in the last debate, and are people in general turned off by the short form of those debates? That's probably two separate questions.
If we're talking about the ordinary voter, they don't even watch. So they're not turned off because they're not turning it on. But for those who pay more attention to these things, it wasn't this last debate that took place this last week, but the one before, where there was 20 million people who watched that debate. It was the largest audience ever for a primary debate. Wow. And so that tells you that people do care. But this last debate that took place in Charleston, South Carolina, was a horrible debate where the moderators seemed to have lost control and the candidates were just yelling at each other. And it just seemed childish. And that's the kind of thing that does not help any candidate. The week before was a well-run debate with good questions. The moderators had control. And that's the kind of thing that really can help a candidate.
And I guess it gives us an insight as to their how they respond to things when they're surprised by things, and it just gives you a little bit of insight, right?
The thinking is it gives us an insight because we get to see the candidates when they're irritated.
Under pressure.
Under pressure, a little bit under pressure. But at the same time, when you think about being president, how often are you in that kind of situation, you know? Even if, basically, they never have to make real quick decisions. They can think about it for a little bit. The only exception to that really would be in the event of a nuclear attack. And we haven't had one of those, thank God, so that's really not the thing. But otherwise, the debates test candidates on skills that really may not have much to do with reasoned decision making, which is part and parcel of what a presidency is about.
This last debate, the one where they were screaming at each other, and we saw all the news stories on that. Republicans, the president, didn't waste any time on jumping on that, on the fact that it was kind of out of control.
Yeah. I mean, the president is here to mess with the Democratic side. That's Donald Trump's method of operation, and he's very, very good at it. So he commented on the debate. He watched it on Air Force One as he was flying back from India, and he said it wasn't very good. And then he is going to have a campaign rally, or actually he did have a campaign rally in South Carolina before the vote they had on Saturday. So that tells you that the president is just wanting to mess around with the Democrats because he can. And he's good at it. He knows how to get attention in the media.
What are we looking forward to coming into Super Tuesday? What's going to be? Is there going to be a big story before that? I know the coronavirus is out there. There'll be some questions on that. But is there anything else looming that we need to be aware of as Super Tuesday approaches?
Probably the big question is the money that Michael Bloomberg is spending.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to drive the vote? In other words, Michael Bloomberg is a real test of the question, can money buy an election?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to find out on Super Tuesday because he is spending $500 million trying to do it. Is it going to work? And we just don't know. And to me, that's the first question. Second question is about Bernie Sanders and how well he's going to do. And then is Joe Biden still going to be important anymore in the presidential process?
All right, they're wrapping this up.
Okay.
When we come back, I want to talk about the administration's response to the coronavirus.
Great.
All right, we'll be back on the Country Politics.